In the small town of Maplewood, the sun was slowly setting on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Bailey Brooks watched the landscape through the window of her home, but the beauty of the scene couldn't dispel the shadow of sadness enveloping her heart. It had been 2 years since the death of her beloved husband, Jonathan, and the pain still felt fresh, as if time had stopped for her. "Are you okay, Bailey?" George, her father-in-law, asked in a concerned tone, interrupting her thoughts. He was sitting in the armchair, his tired but piercing eyes reflecting the strength he had always possessed. Bailey forced a smile. "Yes, George, just thinking about life." But the truth was that life had become too heavy a burden for her to carry alone. Since Jonathan had passed, Bailey had dedicated herself entirely to caring for George, a war veteran whose health was declining. He needed constant attention, and the responsibility weighing on Bailey's shoulders was immense. "You don't have to carry all this alone, you know?" George said, as if he could read her thoughts. "You deserve to live too." Those words echoed in Bailey's mind, but she didn't know how to live again. The long, sleepless nights, filled with memories of Jonathan, left no room for hope. The silence of the house was deafening, filled only with the sounds of George's breathing and the beats of her lonely heart. "Sometimes I just want a little light," Bailey murmured to herself as she looked at the photographs on the shelf. Each image told a story of love and happiness, a life that now seemed so distant. She picked up a frame in her hands, feeling the cold of the glass. "If only you were here, Jonathan," she thought, a tear rolling down her cheek. The phone rang, breaking the melancholy. It was a text from a friend. "Bailey, you can't stay like this forever. How about going out a bit? A new perspective might do you good." She hesitated but didn't reply. The idea of going out, of mingling with people who didn't understand her pain, terrified her. That night, while George slept in the armchair, Bailey got lost in her thoughts. What do I really want? That question haunted her, but she had no clear answer. What could bring back the joy she had lost? And what if she could never find it again? Bailey's mind was tumultuous with unanswered questions and the feeling that life was waiting for something or someone to bring a new light to her existence. Winter in Maplewood brought with it a mantle of silence, a whisper of loneliness lingering in the cold air. The streets were covered by a thin layer of snow, and the trees, stripped of leaves, looked like shadows of a vibrant past. Bailey Brooks walked through the house, her footsteps sounding like echoes, reflecting the solitary life she had led since the death of her beloved husband Jonathan. The emptiness left by his departure felt like a constant presence, like a room that was never forgotten. That morning, while organizing George's office, the phone rang, breaking the tranquility. The clinic receptionist sounded cheerful on the other end of the line. "Mr. Brooks, I'm calling to let you know that a new physical therapist, Oliver Hayes, will be visiting this afternoon. We're excited about his arrival." George smiled upon hearing this. "That's great. Maybe he can help improve my mobility. You're going to talk to him, right, Bailey?" His voice was filled with hope. But Bailey felt a knot in her stomach. Talk? What could she say? What would she know about a new professional when her own life seemed so stagnant? As the hours passed, her anxiety began to transform into a mix of expectation and nervousness. What if he doesn't connect with you, George? What if he's just another therapist? She thought, trying to push the fear away. But somewhere within her, a small flame of curiosity ignited. What if Oliver brought something new to their lives? When the doorbell rang, Bailey was in her room, sorting through the mess of a not-so-distant past. The echo of the door opening reverberated in her thoughts, and for a moment she hesitated. Should I hide? Should I keep my distance? But George's voice pulled her back to reality. "Bailey, come here." When she entered the living room, Oliver was there, a man in his 30s with messy light brown hair and a warm smile that seemed to light up the room. "Hello, Mr. Brooks. I'm excited to get started," he said, extending his hand firmly, his gaze full of energy. George smiled, a renewed sparkle in his eyes. "This is my support, Bailey," he introduced her, and a palpable chemistry filled the space. "Nice to meet you, Bailey," Oliver said, looking directly into her eyes as if trying to decipher her soul. "I hope we can work together to improve your father's quality of life." That simplicity and sincerity stirred a whirlwind of emotions in Bailey, who found herself entangled in a web of feelings she couldn't comprehend. In the following days, Oliver's visits became a new routine. He not only brought exercises for George, but also conversations that seemed to fill the empty spaces of the house. During one session, while helping George rise from the armchair, he began to talk about his own life. "You know, I've faced some tough challenges too. My grandfather had health issues, and caring for him taught me a lot about love and patience," Oliver shared, his voice soft yet firm. Bailey found herself listening intently, admiring how he found beauty in difficulties. "It's admirable how dedicated you were to caring for him," Bailey commented, her voice shy. What she didn't realize was that Oliver's words resonated deeply within her, awakening memories of Jonathan. The care and compassion she had given to him now seemed to reflect in what was happening between her and Oliver. One afternoon, while Oliver was helping George with his exercises, Bailey decided to break the silence that had surrounded her for so long. "Can I show you something?" she asked hesitantly, but with a glimmer of hope in her eyes. Intrigued, Oliver agreed, and she took him to her small studio, where her canvases and paints were stored. As she opened the door, a wave of nostalgia enveloped her, and the smell of paints, once vibrant, now felt dusty. "You paint?" Oliver asked, admiring the works that were there, some unfinished, others covered by a layer of dust. "Yes, but I haven't done it in so long," Bailey replied, a mix of pride and sadness in her voice. "Life has been so complicated, and I lost myself." Looking at the canvases, she remembered the afternoons when colors danced beneath her fingers, expressing feelings that words could never convey. "If you have a moment to get lost in painting, maybe you can find yourself again," Oliver suggested, his gaze encouraging. "Creativity can be a form of healing." Those words penetrated deep into Bailey's heart, like a fresh breeze on a hot summer day. That night, while George slept in the armchair, Bailey found herself sitting in front of the blank canvas, her heart pulsing with a new energy. "How can I find time for myself?" she whispered. But as she allowed herself to dream, the colors began to blend in her mind. A small hope was born, and with it, the courage to try. "Maybe it's time to rediscover this," she thought, letting the idea flow through her mind. However, anxiety about the future still haunted her. "What if it all ends in pain again?" she questioned, a thought that lingered in her mind like a shadow. But looking at Oliver, the uncertainty began to dissipate, making way for a new light in her life. Meanwhile, George, always perceptive, noticed the change in Bailey's behavior. "I think you should give this young man a chance," he said with a knowing smile. "You deserve to be happy, my dear." George's words echoed in Bailey's mind, like a mantra encouraging her to open up to the new. With George's encouragement and Oliver's words resonating in her mind, Bailey decided she was ready to open her heart again. She wanted to allow herself to feel, even if it meant risking getting hurt. So Bailey stood once again before the blank canvas, a new world of possibilities opening before her. The shadow of sadness was beginning to fade, but the journey was still far from clear. The morning light filtered through the windows of Bailey's home, illuminating the canvases that were now covered with vibrant colors. The routine had changed. Her conversations with Oliver had become more frequent, and his presence had become a ray of hope in her life. As their friendship transformed into something deeper, Bailey began to confront the insecurities that had haunted her for so long. "Am I betraying Jonathan's memory?" she often thought as she watched Oliver prepare for the therapy sessions with George. The sight of them together, sharing laughs and advice, warmed her heart and at the same time anguished her. What if I'm just trying to fill a void that can never be filled? The internal struggle was constant, and she found herself trapped in a labyrinth of contradictory feelings. On one of the following days, while they chatted in the kitchen, Oliver casually mentioned he was excited about an event in his hometown. "You should come with me, Bailey. It will be a great opportunity for you to get to know me better," he suggested, that captivating smile on his face. But instead of joy, a chill ran down her spine. What if people there know my story? What if they judge me for moving on? A shadow of doubt settled in her mind. The universe seemed to have a cruel sense of humor. Not long after, Jessica, Oliver's ex-girlfriend, reappeared in town. She was a striking presence, with a seductive smile and a confidence that made Bailey's heart race for different reasons. "Hi, Oliver. Long time no see," she said, her melodic voice echoing in the room. Bailey froze, watching their interaction. It can't be. Not now, she thought, as a whirlwind of emotions washed over her. Why is she back now? Jessica was there, teasing Oliver with her jokes and laughter, and with each passing moment, Bailey felt smaller and more insecure. She began to question her own strength and the validity of her feelings. Does he still like her? Is this all just a game to him? She's so beautiful and self-assured. What am I, after all? Bailey couldn't contain the avalanche of comparisons that surfaced. In a moment of desperation, Bailey decided she needed some time away from Oliver. I can't do this to my heart. It's better to step back now before everything crumbles, she murmured to herself. But that distance brought a greater emptiness, an echo of loneliness that followed her. George, noticing the change in dynamics, looked at Bailey with concern. You don't seem like yourself, dear. What's going on? He asked, his voice laced with affection. Nothing, Dad. I'm just a bit tired. Bailey lied, trying to disguise the storm brewing inside her. But George, with his piercing gaze, was not easily convinced. One night, while they were watching a movie, an unexpected accident occurred. George, trying to get up to grab a glass of water, lost his balance and fell. The sound of the impact echoed through the house, and Bailey, hearing it, rushed to the living room, her heart racing. Dad, are you okay? She shouted, feeling a wave of guilt wash over her. Seeing him on the floor, with a cut on his forehead and an expression of pain, she felt helpless and guilty. I should have been here, she thought, tears streaming down her face. If I had been more attentive, if I hadn't pulled away. The weight of responsibility became unbearable, and she wondered if her pursuit of happiness was costing George his safety. Oliver, who had arrived for the physical therapy session, quickly became a pillar of support. He helped lift George and settled him on the couch, carefully examining the cut. It's all right, Mr. Brooks. We'll take care of this, he said, staying calm while applying a bandage. His presence, so solid and reassuring, made Bailey feel a little stronger, but the turmoil inside her didn't subside. That night, while George rested and Oliver prepared to leave, Bailey approached him. I'm sorry for pulling away, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't know how to deal with all of this, and with Jessica back, I couldn't see beyond my own fears. Oliver looked her in the eyes, a deep gaze that seemed to pierce her soul. You don't need to apologize, Bailey. We all have insecurities. What matters is that you're here now, he replied, his voice gentle. I want you to know that I'm by your side, no matter who shows up or what challenges arise. That simple declaration touched Bailey's heart, and for the first time in days, hope began to blossom again. That night, as she prepared for bed, Bailey reflected on what Oliver had said. I need to be strong, she thought. I need to open my heart and face these fears. If I don't, what will be left of me? With Oliver's image in her mind, she decided she wouldn't let insecurities and the past dominate her future. Lying in her bed, Bailey felt her mind swirling with thoughts. However, amidst the chaos, a resolution emerged. It was time to face her fears, for herself and for those she loved. Oliver's love felt like a beacon in the darkness, and she was determined not to let it slip away. The following days were marked by a new energy in Bailey's home. Oliver's presence became a constant comfort. He not only helped with George's rehabilitation, but also became a close friend, a partner in the small joys of everyday life. Together they laughed, shared stories, and supported each other. Bailey began to realize that by opening her heart, she was not only allowing Oliver into her life, but also freeing herself from the invisible chains that had bound her to the past. With each new day, Bailey's confidence grew. She remembered Oliver's words. You don't need to apologize. What matters is that you're here now. Those words echoed in her mind like a mantra, reminding her that love was not a betrayal of Jonathan's memory, but a way to honor the life and joys he had brought. But before she could let herself be shaken, something inside her awakened. I respect what you had with Oliver, Jessica, but that doesn't change what we're building now. I can't live in the shadow of the past, Bailey declared, her voice firm. To her surprise, Jessica seemed to slow down, a look of admiration crossing her face. Maybe you're right. It's time to move on. As the conversation ended, Bailey realized she had freed herself from another burden. The decision not to let Oliver and Jessica's past affect her brought a new sense of peace. Upon returning home, she found Oliver waiting for her, a wide and welcoming smile on his face. "You look radiant, sweetheart. What happened?" he asked, noticing the change in her energy. "I just let go of some things from the past," Bailey replied, feeling a lightness she hadn't experienced in a long time. That simple act of asserting herself made her feel stronger and more confident. Looking into Oliver's eyes, she realized she had a future by his side, filled with love and understanding. On New Year's Eve, the atmosphere was electric. Bailey decided it was time to celebrate not only the new year, but also the new life she was building. With Oliver and George's help, they organized a small party at home, surrounded by friends and family. During the celebration, laughter and music filled the air, and the atmosphere was imbued with hope. As the clock approached midnight, Bailey and Oliver stepped away from the crowd and went up to the terrace. Under a starry sky, Oliver pulled her close. "What an incredible year, right? Are you ready for the next?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with anticipation. "Yes, more than ever," Bailey replied, feeling lighter and happier. As she gazed toward the horizon, a new determination began to grow within her. "I want to live fully without regrets. I want to create memories that will last forever." With her heart pounding with love, Oliver leaned in and kissed her gently. In that moment, all the fears and insecurities that had tormented her dissipated, replaced by a radiant warmth of love and hope. And so, as the clock struck midnight, Bailey made a silent wish. It wasn't about a new beginning, but rather a fresh start. It was about leaving the past behind and opening the doors to a future filled with love, joy, and a new united family. The story of Bailey and Oliver is at its core about the courage to love again, to break free from the chains of the past, and to believe that love can flourish, even in the most barren of grounds. As they stepped away from the party, their shared glances and intertwined hearts told them that true happiness was only just beginning. Thus, Bailey and Oliver's journey teaches us that love can arise in the most unexpected moments, and that opening our hearts to new possibilities is essential for healing and happiness. Sometimes we must leave behind our fears and insecurities to allow life to surprise us in ways we never imagined. But what about you? Have you ever felt trapped in a cycle of pain and insecurity? Have you allowed yourself to love again after a loss? Share your stories in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you found the courage to move forward and open your heart to new opportunities. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell icon to receive notifications whenever we post new videos filled with emotion and twists. Until next time.